Well, very welcome to the conversation. Well, also, I want to open up the floor to anybody else who is interested. If you have questions, please, I'm happy to jump out there and come give you a microphone. But I wanted to ask you, so we've been over a few things, but how much did you know about things like Mandalorian or anything like that before you got into and involved with this kind of stuff?
I didn't know anything about it. Like, I got an audition that was top secret. I didn't know what I was going in for. Like most of this show, I'm sure Dorian told you, is everything's top secret. Everything's coded. The first season was not called Mandalorian, it was called Huckleberry. So that's a lot of shows in production have code names. So all I knew, I was going into something called Huckleberry to put on a suit. And next thing I know, I was getting dressed in the Mandalorian suit and then auditioning for Jon Favreau. That's kind of how it happened. It was very cryptic. Yeah.
I'm very interested. Show of hands, has anybody watched the making of the Mandalorian stuff? Oh shit. So I'm very curious about working with those like curved LED things. What is that like to work on a set that's not a set, but also partly a set, but also not?
So the volume is where we have those curved LED screens, and they started to use those in, I believe, the Jungle Book first, and then the Lion King. So they were kind of testing those out in live animation, and then for Mandalorian, it's really bizarre. It's crazy because we could be flying in space, and it actually looks like space, and it's moving. And from my perspective, it's all real. When we're in space, a lot of times the crew will get sick. People that get motion sickness can't stay in the room, and then it's really interesting because they can pan the camera to any part of the volume, and then once the shot is focused, whatever it's looking at becomes 3D, and it looks 100% as if you could walk right into it. And I have done that. Like, I've walked into it thinking it was, or sat on a chair that's not real. I don't understand the technology, but it is very mind-blowing to watch a camera pan on a screen and actually see it become 3D right in front of you.
That's absolutely mind-blowing. I'm very confused by that. So let's see. What does it mean to each of you to be part of this franchise?
I think it still comes in waves that I'm like part of the franchise. I don't know that while we were filming it, and since we were saying Huckleberry and we're saying all these, it's not like every day someone was saying Star Wars or The Mandalorian, so it was hard to imagine that we're part of Star Wars when no one's saying it. But I don't think it was really until I saw the first episode and it just really hit me like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing. But I think it's more special now that we've done conventions. Like, now that we've done conventions and we get to meet people that really care about Star Wars and the franchise, then it becomes a lot more special than just being on a set and working together, which is great. But to meet people that now I feel like we've met so many people and they tell us stories about how it had a really positive effect on their life, and that is priceless. So I think that in itself is the coolest thing.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. In terms of the gratitude that you think you might be getting at work, you don't really. Like, you do a good take and you're moving on and you think, oh, I did that really great. They're like, all right, cut, moving on, next thing. You're like, is that okay, that was good? That was good. So when we come here and then you're like, man, you did so great. And I'm like, I really wish I would have heard that on stage. Like, I really wish that would have been so nice in the moment. But thank you so much, because it is, like you said, you do get, we know we did a good enough job for them to move on to the next scene or the next shot, and that's just how it is. But, it's not like a play. At the end of the play, everybody stands up and applauds. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Or they don't. And then you're like, oh, cool, what do I have to do to fix it? It's just the kind of this always this dangling carrot of like, did I do well? You know, or could I have done better? So it is a much more gratifying perspective than being, like I said, being a part of it. I've tried to be in Star Wars stuff my whole career, and so now it's literally taken like 30 years to be in it. And now that I'm in it, it's just so awesome and cool. But I'm just, like I said, you're still just trying to like, it still feels like this thing that's over there, right? It's not me, but it's pretty amazing.
And Barry, were you a fan of Star Wars growing up too?
Yeah, I've answered that question a few times. My dad used to pretend he was Darth Vader to wake me up in the morning. I wasn't like, so my initial feelings about Star Wars were more annoyance. And then, you know, I obviously moved past that.
So both of you are involved in stunt work, which is just a whole other level of exertion beyond just acting. So what have been the most challenging or rewarding pieces of stunt work that you've been able to do?
I can say quickly for myself, I work as the Mandalorian as an actor, so I am not as talented as a stunt performer as Dorian, but I can do a lot of physical stuff. I'm a lover, not a fighter, so thank God there's a really awesome stunt performer named Lateef Crowder who does all the fight scenes for Mando. He won an Emmy for that, the first stunt performer to ever win an Emmy. So I'm often grateful that I'm hired and I get to work as an actor, and sometimes they're like, hey, you don't have to get beat up today. We're gonna let Lateef get hurt. And I'm really grateful for that. Stunt-wise, a lot of things with Mandalorian, it might not be a crazy stunt, but because our vision is often limited, dropping out of a tunnel blind, it's often like, it's not a huge physical thing, but if you have to close your eyes and like jump off of this table, it's gonna be kind of scary when you hit the ground. So for that part of Mando, just often having no visual or peripheral and just having to hope that you are not gonna fall over. Yeah.
Also, don't let him fool you in terms of his physicality and his abilities. Prior to the Mandalorian series, he was one of the leads in Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah.
So
it's incredible. Please watch. Please look it up.
Yeah, was it Le Rev? Yeah, Le Rev. He was the lead in Le Rev. Yeah. So don't let any of the lack of, he wasn't doing that for the show, but prior to the show, he was doing these amazing, crazy things that you would see on Cirque du Soleil, which is an elite athlete perspective, in my opinion. So yeah, don't downplay that.
It's a whole lot of work. I know the people that work backstage for Cirque.
Yeah.
It's just as much work, by the way. It's horrible. Well, speaking of, how have your previous roles prepared you for things in Star Wars?
I can answer for Dorian. As Dorian, Dorian's had to do a lot of really bizarre creatures, you know. I mean, and so what happens is, you know, you're going from one crazy creature imaginative performance to the next, and each time you learn something that makes you a little bit better for the next time. And along the way you learn, like when he's Cad Bane, you know, you learn how to use mannerisms that are not something you would normally use. You know, you have to understand what your character is and how they would or would not move. So that's what Dorian would say.
So what Barry would say is that he was doing stuff and dealing with props and how much strong you have to be in being an elite gymnast for the Rev and dealing with, like I said, sensory deprivation and surprises and adapting on the fly and being able to do something over and over and over again, whether you have like a torn muscle or extremely sore muscles or a twisted ankle, whatever it is, and being able to push through multiple takes in and be like, can I just get an ace bandage and just wrap my ankle really quick and keep going, or whatever that is. You know, you get prepared from your previous physical life in your training, in, you know, Cirque or stunts or general athletics to push through the elements of like, hey, we need one more shot. You're like, you got one left because I'm about to pass out. But that's what you end up having to do, and you just have to kind of push through these barriers, even if you think you have all the time in the world, and you don't half the time.
Well, speaking of that, have you had injuries that you've had to push through?
Yeah.
Can you
I was on
explain?
RoboCop, and we, both me and the other stunt guy, we shared stuff, but he was more of a moto double for like the motorcycle stuff, and I was like the fight, movement, wire work guy. But we both had this running sequence, and we pulled our quads, and it was just so painful. It was like knives being stabbed in the back of our legs when we were just trying to walk. So we had literally like, you got tape? Yeah, I got tape. And we're both in the dressing room, just like wrapping our legs together, just like super tight to just be able to do it. All right, we gotta go. And then we would tag out like who's the most hurt. You would have to be like, wait, can you do this? Yeah, I can do it more. Like, all right, I'll rest for a minute. And we switch out. I'm like, okay, that sucks. And you just literally have to tag out for, you know, it's like it's weird. I don't know how to explain it.
For anyone who thinks acting's not hard,
Yeah, I really appreciate a lot of the older films, you know, where you had to be a triple threat to be on the screen, and you might only get one take, or you might do a song and dance number that's 5 minutes long, and you just keep doing it. To me, a lot of actors that maybe just have to talk, I don't really think that's so hard. So yeah, whether it's been live shows or TV shows, when you're doing physical acting, you know, if you can't do it, then you're out of a job. So when I did live shows, it's like if I couldn't do a show, then I'm not going to get a paycheck. And then a TV show, like Dorian said, you don't just get to go up and say, hey, yeah, my legs hurt, I'm just gonna rest. No one has time for that. So there's a brutality in this industry where you look like a superhero, they expect you to be a superhero, and just keep going. And so you learn a lot of ways, like ice baths every day, to just be able to keep going, just like any professional athlete would, so that you keep your job.
cringy. Okay. Well, if anybody else has questions in the audience, we're going to go ahead and open it up for the next couple of minutes. If you've got some, raise your hand. I'm going to come to you. Aha! Oh, I'm not going to jump off that. I'm not a stunt person.
What's your most embarrassing moment on set?
I usually say the same thing. That question has been asked before by someone that looks really similar to you.
Multiple states.
Yeah, our first costume, I think even still now, our costume for Mando does not have any spandex in it, and we do a lot of physical stuff, so I rip my pants a lot. And one of the worst times, I ripped it right up the seam of the butt, and I had to lay on a table and let a guy named Mike Manziel, who's made the suit, like stitch up my crotch. Somewhere there's video of that. And then another really embarrassing thing was just when the first season, there was really not a way to get out of that suit in an emergency. And so when you do have a bathroom emergency, that's what's in that whole other thing. We have to be really strategic with how we eat and what we drink, and like it's not just like, hey, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. That doesn't happen. So when it does happen, the first time I thought I could go to the bathroom by myself was a disaster, and I just got stuck with things everywhere. It was not good.
There's probably way more, but I'm blanking on a lot of them right now. I know, I blocked them out. I think that's what it is too, depending on which ones there are. Here's one that actually just came to mind. So, there's a TV show, it's called Last Ship, about Navy SEALs and all that kind of stuff. So I worked on that quite a bit, and my fiance was like one of the co-star coordinators on it. And there's this big sequence where a helicopter's supposed to come in, but it's a drone, there's a POV of this helicopter, and they have all these squib hits in the ground, and we're all in this row, and we're facing the opposite direction for some reason, and then we all kind of have to like get shot from behind. So we kind of have to like hear or feel when these hits are happening, but in like an opposite direction. Like you can't tell when it's gonna happen, and it's a tiny drone, so you can't really hear it. And we're all supposed to fall down in this synchronized order. So sure enough, they go, all right, and action. 3, 2, 1, it comes down. I thought it was going in cadence, but the squibs didn't go off, but I was premeditating the timing on how I was supposed to go off. So I fall down, and I go, boom, hit the ground, and I look, and then I kind of fall towards the line, and everybody's still standing. So then I go, oh man, I messed up. But then I see the drone coming, so I go, do I stay dead or did I get back up? So I get back up in like this twisting, kind of very, you know, delicate pirouette almost. I get up, and then everybody falls down, and then I fall down again. And I just lay down, and I go, oh, that sucks. That's so bad. And my one buddy, who's a stunt guy, who is super nice, but just literally has no tact, he's sitting on top of a tank that's off camera, and he goes, go Dorian! I'm fired, I'm so fired right now. And he was able to like reenact it really well, but for some reason, like I fell, and then when I got up, like I spun up, and then like I fell again, and it was just like this perfect, he's like, you look like Michael Jackson, like falling and dying, and I was like, oh, that sucks so bad. Yeah, that was a good one. That was pretty embarrassing for me. Nailed it.
So Dorian knows what it feels like to be Michael Jackson, and Barry knows what it feels like to be a Victorian woman. Great.
I've actually played Michael Jackson for a movie too, which is pretty fun. Date movie. They saw that one.
It's been a hot minute. Any other questions?
On the left.
Hello.
Okay, so as in Hollywood, you obviously would know, what percentage of the costumes in these things are padded?
It depends on the suit, honestly. I think. You talking about like the muscles, or are you talking about, oh, okay. They're sculpted. There's a lot of sculpting going on. So like they're you know, like Chris Evans, very fit Captain America. He looks great, right? He looks really good. The suit that he also wears might be a little thinner or thicker depending on the look that they're going for, but there is like kind of a thin layer of foam that is sculpted to define the muscles in the particular areas as well. Same thing like Batman or other stuff. So those, Black Panther, right? The guys are usually super shredded, but at the same time, you need to kind of enhance the highlights of like how the lighting hits the human body. So there usually is a little bit of it there, but it just also depends on the person's body and how much they need to fill it out, I guess.
Mando doesn't have any padding, so it's just what you see. But it could be helpful for maybe a younger generation to really understand that nothing you see is real. Everything is enhanced. You know, recently, I can't say who they were bringing on to Mando, and it's someone that I was like, that guy is perfect. He has the best hair. Like, wow. And then I happened to walk on set, and they have 5 wigs that they had made for him, and the directors were deciding which wig he was going to wear. And then I realized his hair is not even real. Like, but so none of it's real, and a lot of it's unattainable, and unfortunately, people don't always know that. You know, none of it's real.
Well, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, thank you all for coming out, especially how we had our awesome snow flurry yesterday. So if anybody made it through that safely, and committed to coming out to this, and so glad we got to meet you guys. So like I said, without you, there's no us, and it's a beautiful circle of life.
Thanks. Don't forget to visit the Method